Welcome to the Never Die Podcast, your weekly crypto alpha for those who never quit. Remember, the number one rule crypto investing is to never die. You need to stay in the game. You need to stay alive. You need to have a strategy so that you don't go to zero and you live long enough to claim the prize at the end of the golden rainbow road. Okay, in this episode, I'm going to be sharing the top projects that I'm buying in October, or for October. It's not October yet. It's technically still September. But the top projects I'm like buying in preparation for October. I believe October is going to be a really bullish month. Maybe not at the start of the month, but about halfway through, I'm expecting some bullish momentum to start capturing in the crypto market. And so I'm buying some pretty small projects right now in anticipation of capturing some of that upside. Now, keep in mind, this is just my personal thoughts about a crypto project or crypto projects I bought and am bullish on. This obviously isn't investment advice, and you should always do your own research. Project number one that I'm currently loading up on in anticipation for what I believe is going to be a rally in October is Winner Protocol. So WINR, this is a project on Arbitrum that I've been paying attention to for a while now that I'm really bullish on for a couple different reasons. The way that Winner works and why it's different, let me just start, okay? So Winner is basically a gambling protocol. And I say protocol because it's not just an app. So we have in crypto various different apps, like gambling apps like you have Rollbit, Stake.com, and there's other ones out there. Those gambling apps, for one, aren't on-chain apps. So they're just, they're basically similar to like traditional gambling platforms that you would see, in Web 2 outside of crypto, but with their main differences being they accept crypto as payment. So like, it's really easy to take your crypto and go gamble it on these apps. And two, they may or may not have a token. And these tokens provide maybe a way for you to kind of own the house in a way, because sometimes like with Rollbit, for example, they will burn profits that they make on the platform. And so they'll do buyback and burn. So they'll get Rollbit, they'll buy it off the open market, and that kind of is a way to pass on some of that value to token holders. So it does have some innovations there outside of what you would see maybe in the traditional Web 2 space. But what Winner is very, very different from something like Rollbit or something like Stake.com. Winner is on-chain betting and gambling. And it's not just that even. It's actually much, much more than that. But on a base level, it's on-chain versus Rollbit and Stake.com would primarily not be on-chain. And I like to give the analogy or like the description of like if you were to go back to like the early 2000s, what was really hot back then was like having internet technology, incorporated it into your business. And back then, people didn't really understand the internet. They weren't really using it and stuff. And so it's just like, oh, yeah, we're an internet company because of this X reason that was kind of stupid back. Now, today, we're like, that's stupid. But back then, people thought, maybe that was cool. An example would be like, imagine a Las Vegas casino. And they're like, hey, we're now an internet company. And people are like, well, why are you an internet company? And they're like, well, we have a website. And if you go to the website, you can see our About Us profile. You can see some pictures of the casino. You can really easily get directions. And that helps kind of promote and market the casino. So we're an internet company. Obviously, that is a way of using the internet that maybe is kind of interesting and maybe is kind of useful. But it isn't like an internet gambling site, right? It's very different than that. An internet gambling site would be one where on the internet, you can go and do these casino games that traditionally you had to physically go to the casino to do. Okay, so it's very, very different, right? One is actually utilizing the internet to do things. The other one is using the internet, but it's in a lesser way. So in that same way, there's crypto projects right now that use the internet use crypto in a lesser way. And Winner is using it to the full extent. That's on chain, okay? And so what Winner is doing, I call it the App Store model. Basically, it's a platform or a protocol where others are incentivized to come and build on top of it. And there's lots of different reasons why they're incentivized to come and build on top. But the big picture I want to paint is this App Store model, right? If you look at something like, and I know some of you guys, maybe if you watch my YouTube videos, you've heard these arguments before, but just hear me out because I will go in a little bit more in depth here. If you look at something like the cell phone industry way back in the day. So you go look at like iPhones, or before iPhones, you look at like Blackberries and Razor phones. I don't know if you guys remember this, but phones used to come natively with whatever apps they were going to have. So the phone manufacturer would be like, hey, we're going to pre-install these apps. And that's all the phone came with. So maybe it's like a calendar. Maybe there's a calculator. Maybe if you were really lucky, your phone had like some sort of like game. It had like Tetris or something on there. But that was it. There was no app store. You couldn't download an app for your phone. That wasn't something that was possible to do back then. And what the iPhone did that was really genius was they introduced the App Store. And what is the App Store? The App Store is a marketplace for other people outside of Apple to come and build on top of the iPhone and introduce their own apps. And what this did was it outsourced innovation to the open market, to the free market, where the free market was able to say, hey, Apple only has so much time and resources. And, they might think of like, this would be a cool app to have on an iPhone, or this would be a cool app. But they only have so much time to build these apps, and, they could be wrong. They can't like build a million apps and test them all at once. But the open market can. So what you had was thousands and thousands of developers come and build these apps. Some of them were like, I remember like one of them was like turned your phone into a lightsaber. So like as you moved your phone around, it made like lightsaber sounds. And like if you brought it close to somebody else's phone, it would like sound like it's clashing with that phone. There was one app where it turned your flash. If a lot of people might not remember this, but the iPhone didn't have a flashlight on it originally. There was just a flash for when you took pictures. But somebody figured out that they could just keep the flash on. And so they did that, and they made the flashlight app. And there's all kinds of things like this, right? And so it was the open market trying and innovating all kinds of crazy ideas. Some of them were games. Some of them were, like various apps like I've described. And things that it might have took years for Apple to figure out, and many things that Apple would have never been able to figure out or never been able to implement. That's the kind of power of the open market, is you have all this experimentation and innovation happening all at the same time. So you kind of sort through the bad ideas and get right to the good ideas. It's amazing, okay? And it's responsible for why, we have all these crazy cool apps and stuff today. Well, Winner is a similar platform. It invites other people to come build. So it's a protocol. And so we'll start with their casino setup. So they have a casino setup, which is like a similar to stake.com or Rollbit, whatever. You can come build one of these front-end casinos. But you build it on top of Winner. So the Just Bet Official, I believe, was built by Winner. I'm not actually 100% sure if that's built by their team or by as like an example or not. But for example, Just Bet Official is a front end built on top of Winner. Anyone else can come and build one of these front ends on top of Winner, and they can tap into all the deep liquidity. They can tap into all the tool sets that Winner's built. And it's a lot easier for them to do this on chain than it would be, say, for them to build out their own entire app from scratch. And so it saves them a lot of time, a lot of headache, and it makes it easier for them to launch. And you might be thinking like, well, why would they want to do this? Well, they'd want to do this because they could charge a fee, right? So like you could launch a front end on top of Winner, and you charge like, say, a 1% fee on top of Winner. So every transaction that goes through this front end, you're getting like 1%. And, there's transactions that are being paid to the Winner protocol, but because you're the front end, you're able to capture a small portion of that. And that could be really lucrative, especially if you get a lot of volume coming through your front end. So you're more focused as a front end developer on the UI, on the user experience, on marketing, on getting more users to that platform. And you're less concerned about the technical side because Winner is handling that. And it's not just you, but, thousands of people could come, or, development teams can come launch these front ends. And so that's the idea. Just like apps, right? Just like apps, they're launching their own apps on top of Winner Chain, specific to gambling casino apps. But that's not all the Winner does. It's not just gambling casino apps. For one, Winner as a protocol also develops games, and these are fully on-chain games, which is really unique and provides a lot of like transparency, fairness, etc. And we have this in crypto. We've seen this before with things like, it used to be, I think it was CoinFlip. Was like last cycle, we had this app called CoinFlip, and you just press a button, and it was like 50-50 odds. You could double your money or lose it or whatever. I don't know. It was a coin flip, right? But it's on chain, so you knew it was fair. Like nobody could cheat you. It was very transparent. It's similar with these games. Nobody's going to be able to cheat you. You're going to know the odds, the probability, and it's fair. Okay. So they're building these games out that specifically are for on-chain. But not only are they building it, but again, App Store model, other people can come build games as well. And the really cool thing is if you come and develop a game and say you're launching it on Just Bet Official, well, all these other front ends can also implement the game you've built onto them. So like say there's 1,000 front ends built on Winner. You build the game, and now it's that game is not on one front end, but it has the opportunity to be on 1,000 front ends. So it's really highly incentivized for game developers to come build on it. And they don't just have things like casino front ends and casino games. They also have things like Degens Bet. It's a perps platform, and it's very similar to everything we've been describing, where that's one front end that they've built. But anyone can come build a front end and tap into their deep liquidity and build a perps platform. And what a perps platform is it's just a leverage platform. So for example, say you're like really, really bullish on something like ETH or something like Bitcoin, and you think it's going to like 2x, 3x over the next 2 years, or maybe 5x or 10x. I don't know. But say you want more than that. You're like fully degen and you're like, I don't want just 5x. I want a 500x. We can come to a platform like this and you can do something like Degens Bet and do something like 100x leverage. And they actually put that in their safe category. That's not safe. 100x leverage is insane, absolutely insane, and a great way to lose all your money. But if you think of it from kind of the gambling, high risk degen standpoint, that might be something that some people want to do and have fun with. And they're playing around with a small amount of money and they think that's maybe something that's interesting to them. Or you could leverage up as high as 1,000x leverage, which is insanely degen. But like say you're right and ETH just randomly happens to just go straight up. Instead of making a 5x, you would do something like a 5,000x, which is insane. So they have things like Degen Bet and that whole infrastructure and platform so that anyone could come and build their own perps platform. They also have things like, if you're familiar with Pump.Fun, and this hasn't even come out yet, but they're releasing a platform similar to Pump.Fun, along with the tooling and infrastructure for other people to launch similar meme coin launchpads. So Pump.Fun did something like 100 million or 300 million or whatever within their first 6 months of being live. Crazy amounts of revenue for a new app. And it's basically just a launch pad for meme coins to launch off of. So there's a market problem where before meme coins were launching, but they were launching and getting rugged. Like the developer would pool the liquidity, basically steal the liquidity so that users were losing all their value. And this wasn't fun for users. Users didn't like this. And so Pump.Fun came along and said, hey, we're going to make guardrails and make it safe so that people can't do that. And so it ended up taking off. Lots of meme coins launched on it and kind of kicked off almost this meme coin renaissance. And so what Winner's doing is they're launching their own infrastructure for that. So people could come build their own meme coin launch pads. It doesn't have to be on Solana. They could build it on Base. They could build it on any chain. And again, this is all built on top of Winner and taps in their infrastructure. They're also launching a predictions market infrastructure. Same kind of idea. Polymarket's been massively successful. Polymarket has been talked about by presidents. It's been featured in mainstream media. It's integrated into Bloomberg Terminal. Okay, prediction markets have been wildly successful in the crypto space. This is a way for other people to build front-end prediction markets, and it's going to come with the first one, which again I believe is launched by Winner, which is going to be a prediction market built on top of Winner. And there's even more than that. Now, I'm not going to dive into all the different things that Winner is building, but you get the idea. You get the bigger picture that they're building this infrastructure for like the degen sector of crypto, which is pretty massive. Like there's a lot of degeneracy within the crypto space where people do want to gamble on meme coins. They do want to do these things that are highly risky behavior, and they want an outlet for that. And I kind of think of Winners, it's very similar to Pump.Fun with the same thought. Like right now, doing this behavior can be maybe risky within the space. Pump.Fun put on these guardrails and made it a safe, kind of controlled environment. And Winner is doing that, but across the entire sector with a lot of these apps. And I'm really, really bullish on that. And the reason that I'm extremely bullish on apps like this is because I believe that we're going to see this kind of risk-taking behavior continue to go up over the coming years. And I think of this, I think we're going to see this for a couple different reasons. One reason that I think we're going to see this is just as we continue to debase our money supply, as it becomes more and more difficult to afford a home and to afford maybe the lifestyle that people want to live, people tend to turn towards riskier and riskier behavior to try to achieve that result, right? For example, like back in the 1950s or whatever, it's relatively easy to just get a job, work hard, and you own a home, right? And so there was no incentive for somebody to go do something insanely risky. Actually, there was disincentive because you already had the tool set you needed to kind of achieve that American dream you might be after. But as time's gone on, we're printing more and more money. You're having inflation and then monetary debasement. Homes are getting more and more expensive. Wages are not keeping up with that because kind of the dynamics of the way that works is, most people aren't even aware of inflation for one. And they aren't thinking to maybe ask for a raise like they should to kind of counter that inflation. In general, I just think most people are really, really ignorant of the fact that we have inflation impacting our spending, and that it's causing them to lose purchasing power. That's why most people don't own assets. They have cash. They're falling behind because of these things. However you want to say it, the American dream is becoming further and further out of reach for the average person. It's becoming more and more difficult to own a home and do all these things that they were told is the American dream, the thing that they should be after. And so people are turning towards alternative lifestyles to try to achieve that. Some people are just giving up entirely and they're saying, hey, I'm never going to own a home and I'm going to live with my parents or I'm going to live in an RV or whatever. Other people, to try to achieve maybe what they're after, are resorting to forms of risk taking to try to achieve that. And that can come in many forms. It's not just gambling. Investing in crypto might be one of those risk taking type activities. But in general, people become more they have a higher risk appetite the more you see monetary debasement. On top of that, we have AI coming, and not coming. I mean, it's here, but it's rapidly getting better. It's actually blowing my mind how fast AI is getting better and improving. And AI, even right now, so you have ChatGPT just launched their O1 preview. This thing, if you have not used it, it blew my mind. I use this thing, actually I used it to the amount of credits I had. So I pay for the premium subscription, and I used it so much that it like blocked me from using it. It's like, you can't use this for another week because you've used this too much. Because it's insane. It's like having a full-time employee that's able to do things for me. It is really wild using this thing. It's so smart, and it's like able to do things so well. It actually helped me with some pretty big problems I've been trying to sort through. And it's only going to continue to get better. It's only going to continue to get better. And it's almost like I said, it's almost, in some ways it is as good or better than having an employee. But it's rapidly getting better. And soon, when it comes to knowledge work, things like office work, technical support, like coding, anything with Excel spreadsheets, maybe doing your taxes, like any sort of knowledge work, any sort of office job. Soon, AI is going to, in my opinion, be as good, if not better, than most people. Okay, as good, if not better. And when that happens, the cost of knowledge work is going to collapse down to the cost of compute and electricity. Because if you own a company, and instead of having 10 employees that you might be costing $1 million a year or something, you could pay for like 10 AI employees or whatever, one AI employee to replace all of them, and it's only going to cost you compute and electricity. And so we're going to see this happen, and it's going to be really difficult for most people that have knowledge that do this knowledge work, and it's going to happen faster than most people expect. With Winter, I believe that a lot of people like Elon Musk, Sam Altman, et cetera, they think that we're going to have UBI, Universal Basic Income. And it's this idea that like if people don't have jobs, there is just going to be this need almost in their view for people to have like basic income coming in, some sort of government stimulus constantly coming in. I don't know if that's accurate or not, but if it is, like let's say it is, okay, everyone's getting like $5,000 a month checks, $2,000 a month checks, or whatever. People are going to want to make more money than their neighbor or whatever. And I think one of the ways they're going to do that is by taking risks. And I think one of the ways they're going to take risks is going to be things like gambling. And so I think Winter is inherently an AI-proof platform or business model that could do well in an AI future. So Anyway, that's there's a lot more to it. I feel like I've spent a lot of time on Winner, but that's kind of like my argument for it in a nutshell and why I like it. I would say that if you look at like how might this project fail, how might Winner not succeed, I would say there's a lot of just like any project, there's a lot of things that could cause that to happen. If you had some sort of smart contract error, major hack or something, it could fail. Currently, there's not a lot of competition, so there's not like a big competitor for Winner today that I think could dethrone them at the moment. But there could always arise one, I suppose, that could catch up. I think if Winner went slow or kind of slacked off, they could definitely fail. Right now, they're building at pretty breakneck speed, so I'm pretty pumped on that. But it definitely, if they slowed down and became kind of lazy, like say their token price went way up for Winner, and they felt like, oh, cool, now we're rich, we don't really need to keep developing a ton, that would be bad. But at the same time, if I held Winner and the token price went up, I could just sell, and so maybe it wouldn't be as bad. Maybe some sort of regulatory thing could happen. It'd be really difficult, but maybe that could happen. I'm having trouble. One of the reasons I'm bullish on it is because there isn't, in my opinion, there isn't a ton of ways or direct ways that are directly obvious that it could fail. But in the aggregate, there always is. In the aggregate, there always is. Because crypto projects, 90% of them fail. So keep that in mind. Project number 2 that I'm looking at, and I'll go through these projects a little bit faster, is Index. So I've talked a lot about Index as well. You'll notice that I don't rotate through like just tons of different alts. I typically, when I find a good project, I build a thesis on it, and I become I start to try to break it down, and I start to look through the bullish catalyst for why it might succeed. And if I find one that I think is really good, like in my opinion is really good, so I'm really bullish on it. And it's rare and it's difficult for me to find those because there's a lot of garbage within the crypto space, a lot. And it's difficult to find the good ones that I have conviction in. And so, but one I do have conviction is Index. And the reason I like Index is because if you look at the crypto space right now, there are literally like millions of tokens being launched every month. It's crazy. Most of those are meme coins. But even outside of that, it's like thousands and thousands of tokens being launched. And all kinds of new sectors. We have like SocialFi, we have GambleFi, we have real world assets, we have DPen, we have meme coins like I just mentioned, we have DeFi, we have GameFi. We have stable coins. There are all sorts of different sectors of crypto. We have Bitcoin layer 2s, we have layer 2s, we have layer 1s. And it's really hard to keep up. Even me being a full-time like in the space, it's really difficult for me to keep up with all the different things being launched in the crypto space. And as things get more complex and there's more tokens, there becomes a need to sort and filter through those tokens. And I think the market's going to do that in a couple ways. I think one way it's going to do that is via fundamentals, right? Fundamentals will become inherently more important because when there's 1,000 tokens, you're not just going to like be able to throw a dart at one and succeed like you have in the past. When there's only 100 tokens and everyone's bullish on crypto, like, yeah, they're going to mostly all go up. But when there's thousands, like it's just not going to work like that. So you have to be a little bit smarter if you want to succeed. And so the market is going to cause you to have to look for like factors that kind of differentiate these tokens from each other. One of those factors is going to be fundamentals, maybe revenue, maybe user base, tech that sets it apart, etc. And I think another way people are going to be able to sort through this market is going to be with things like indexes. This is really popular in the traditional financial space. You have the S&P 500, things like that. And so, in my opinion, there's no reason this won't also be popular within the crypto space, which is inherently really complex for the average person. And Index is on-chain indexes. I'm really bullish on them for a couple different reasons. They already have their DPI or DeFi index that's been live. It's been a really great product. They just recently integrated Pendle into the DeFi index, and it's an index that's constantly updated. So basically, they take multiple different tokens. I could probably look at the tokens they currently have in the DeFi index, but they take multiple different tokens. And they weight them based on like I don't know whatever the factors are for determining what should be in this index. And so the DeFi Pulse Index right now, if I could pull this up, okay. So the DeFi Pulse Index has things like Uniswap, Aave, Maker, Lido, Pendle, Athena, Compound, Rocket Pool, and Yearn. And 28% of it's Uniswap, 25% of it's Aave, 16% is Maker. 6% Pendle, 10% Lido, etc. Okay, so it's pretty safe. If you're familiar with DeFi, like this is a pretty good way to get exposure to DeFi. And so people can come buy this, and it's as if they own those allocations of that token. It's like it's a tokenized index of those positions. And so people that don't want to go do research on Uniswap, Aave, Maker, and all these different things could just buy this token and get exposure to that asset class or to that narrative. And as time goes on, they'll get rid of ones. Like if, ones maybe it's not as relevant anymore or whatever. Like they'll remove that from the overall allocation and rebalance the index. And so it's a way of like, you don't have to pay attention. Like, so it's, for example, like if you bought like certain tokens and didn't pay attention, some of them have not done really well. And that would have been a mistake. You got to constantly watch your tokens. But indexes take a little bit of that stress and weight off the average person and allow them to invest and just not really think about it. Just know that the allocations are being rebalanced for them and updated from time to time. And so that's why I'm really bullish. They have DeFi right now. They just launched like a high yield ETH index. They have some others like large cap index, etc. One of the big factors kind of been slowing them down from launching a ton of indexes is like it's really difficult to get the liquidity for these indexes, which is why I'm even more bullish on them is because they have launched a new model called PRTs or product revenue tokens. They're really, really interesting. And it's basically when they want to launch a new index. So say they're like, hey, we want to launch an AI index. Early depositors can deposit to a vault and say, hey, we want to see this index happen. We're really bullish on this AI index. And in exchange, if that index gets enough liquidity, it'll launch and they'll get what's called PRT tokens or product revenue tokens that entitle them to a certain percentage of the revenue based on how much they deposited of that index. So imagine it like this. Imagine this had existed for the S&P 500 way back in the day. And you could have deposited early. You're like, oh, I'm going to put up 10% of the liquidity for the S&P 500. And, early before anyone thought it was a good idea. Obviously, it's really successful today. If you had 10% of the revenue from that, you would be like a giga wealthy, right? Giga wealthy. And that's the idea. If you're really bullish on a AI index and you think this is going to be huge, crypto is going to be huge in the future, you have 10% of those tokens, giga wealthy is in the future would be the idea. You can also sell those tokens. So you can take those tokens, you can sell them on the open market. They'll accrue value around them as well. And I think this is a really great model because it incentivizes more indexes to be launched and for the liquidity to be provided to those indexes. And also a portion of those PRTs for each index actually go into the index token, like its own treasury. So like the index token becomes an index of all these PRTs, which can accrue value outside of, because they can be bought and sold, right? So they can go up and down in price. So inherently, I'm just really, really bullish on this concept as a whole. I really think the more tokens get launched, the more need there is for indexes. And I really think the PRT model is just genius because it essentially allows index to launch tons of different tokens without hurting the index token. It actually helps the index token because the value from those tokens is held and represented within the index token. So really, really cool idea, in my opinion, and just one that I'm bullish on going in the future. They did recently launch, they have like a leverage suite that they launched that seems to be gaining traction. I think they launched it on Base. And so it's just like a really easy way to tap into maybe a little bit of safer leverage. So I talked about winner 100x leverage. This is like 2x, 3x leverage. But it's represented in, it's a tokenized leverage. So yeah, really bullish on index. As far as how this project might fail, there's lots of ways this could fail. If the team's like really, really slow, continually slow, doesn't launch a lot of new products, that's very bearish. And that's a way they could just fall behind. Smart contract risk, all that kind of stuff. Competitors, I've seen a competitor on Solana. It was more like one index, but there are competitors from time to time. There's different vaults that are almost kind of like indexes, but not quite. And it's also just possible indexes never take off like I'm thinking. It seems crazy to me because it's so popular in traditional finance, but nothing's guaranteed. So those are some reasons I think it could fail. It's not a sure thing, but it's definitely a bet I'm willing to take myself. Project number 3 that I'm bullish on in going into October would be Research Coin. Research Coin, I've talked about a ton on my YouTube channel, my YouTube videos. It's a project within the DeSci space. And so DeSci stands for decentralized science. And I actually think it's one of the coolest use cases for crypto today, but it's like almost completely universally ignored by the crypto space for some reason. I don't know why. It is actually insanely beneficial and useful. And I'll give you an example why. Like imagine somebody throws, like people are gambling on meme coins, right? And this meme coin goes to like 10 billion, okay? What value was actually created for the world or for humanity by that meme coin going to 10 billion or people speculating on it? Not much value is created. But imagine if instead of people speculating on meme coins, they were speculating on cures for cancer. They were speculating on, some new breakthrough thing that removes plastics from people's bodies or, solves world hunger. Or like, I don't know, allows us to colonize the moon. Crazy stuff, right? Most of those projects are probably going to fail. Most of those ideas are probably going to fail. Just like most meme coins are probably going to fail. But you're inherently putting capital to more efficient and better use than maybe speculating on meme coins. And at least me personally, I would way rather speculate on like the cure to cancer or something like that than I would on a meme coin. Because not only, like I said, inherently is that a more useful use of capital, but like say I'm right and this company ends up coming up with something that cures cancer or whatever, the upside potential is insane. The upside potential is absolutely insane. And you're looking at very similar risk properties to just investing in general when it comes to meme coins, et cetera. So it's like, why wouldn't you want something inherently that has real fundamentals versus doesn't? I think the crypto space does want that. It's just regulation has been holding us back in a lot of different ways. So when it comes to DeSci though, that's basically the pitch. That's basically the idea. There's different areas. There's research journals and like the ability. Okay, so let me break it down. I'm kind of getting confusing and ranting. This pod's been going on for 48 minutes, so I'm just a little bit flustered going through all these subjects. But there's a couple different ways. So maybe I'll start with what Research Coin actually does. So as a part of like the scientific process, there's this thing called you have to create research papers, right? Publish your research. And publishing your research is kind of like the way you get raises and move up, get funding and move up the like scientific ladder. And if you're publishing a ton of research in the really notable journals, you're like really cool. That's like tons of status. You're a baller. And if you're not, even if you're really smart, then like you're pretty much ignored by the space. Okay, and it's called this publisher perish mindset. And what it incentivizes actually is instead of people actually doing good science, they're incentivized to put out papers that are likely to get published and receive a lot of attention, or receive a lot of acclaim or whatever. And so it's messed with the incentives of science and created this kind of weird environment where it's very bureaucratic and is not actually lending towards the result that most people would want. Most people want flying cars. They want, like I said, colonizing the moon, cure to cancer, all this kind of stuff. But we're not seeing it because the incentives are so misaligned. And the way you make money, because you got to feed your family, you got to get funding, is by publishing these research papers. And it's really easy to game this research and like all kinds of stuff. But what was really interesting to me when it came to this academic journal space, and if you were to guess, like, what's the money in this space, you'd probably think it's not very much. But it's actually like a multi-billion-dollar industry. I didn't know that. But like scientists will pay like thousands of dollars to get their research published and all this stuff. It's crazy. I wasn't aware of any of this. And so what Research Coin is trying to build is a better open source model to do this. A way that isn't as easily gamed and a way that's actually a lot cheaper. And this kind of comes with, so recently the government did like a mandate basically where if it's government funded research, which it's insane it wasn't like this before, but if it's government funded research, it has to now be open source. Previously, it didn't. So if it could have been government-funded research, and then like they'd still have to like, you still have to pay to access this research, which is crazy because it's paid for by tax dollars. But now the government says you can't do that because obviously you shouldn't be able to do that. And so the way that Research Coin works is instead of charging people to like publish and submit research, they charge for other things like peer review incentives. They have this whole process where you can say, hey, I'm willing to put up $100 in research coin for somebody to come peer review my paper, which is notoriously a really difficult thing to get people to do. Right now it's unpaid. So if you want somebody to peer review a paper, you have to just wait for somebody to be willing to do it. And it's unpaid. So it's like there's not a lot of incentive for people to do it. And so with Research Coin, they incentivize that as well as many other things. Like I'm looking for somebody to help me with this project, or can somebody figure out this element of this research, etc. And they'll incentivize it with a Research Coin. And Research Coin takes a portion of every transaction versus charging people up front in the classical sense of how these journals work. Now, I kind of totally spaced. One of the coolest and craziest things about Research Coin is the fact that it's co-founded by Brian Armstrong. Brian Armstrong, who co-founded Coinbase, one of the biggest crypto exchanges on the planet. This guy's a multi-billionaire, and he co-founded Research Coin. And so despite that, it's like a really, really tiny crypto project today. It's like really, really tiny. And I think as most people aren't aware of it, or maybe they're not aware of what DeSci is, or maybe they don't understand how much money journals make. I don't know. But it's really tiny today. And I'm really bullish on it because of the resources Brian Armstrong lends, the narrative that Brian Armstrong lends, and the fact that like Brian Armstrong has shown a history of building really great companies in the past. And this is something he himself is really passionate about. You can see it on his Twitter bio, that he's the co-founder of Research Coin. Now, Research Coin doesn't just plan on making money through these incentives. Another industry that they're wanting to tap into is research funding, which is kind of some of what I talked about earlier. Research funding is a $1.2 trillion sector, $1.2 trillion, and it's really inefficient today, the way it's done. And crypto and research coin. It's not actually called Research Coin. It's called Research Hub is what the platform's called. Research Coin is the token. So Research Hub believes that they can make that process a lot more efficient, especially when you consider like their whole platform is built to more easily identify people who are actually good at science and who actually have value to bring to that research. So it's a better alignment when it say like you have $1 million and you're like, I want to fund, colonizing the moon. Well, you kind of want to know who's actually going to further that mission the best, not who's gamed the research paper system to make them look like they're smart, but the people that actually are smart. I think at Twitter, like there's a lot of people on Twitter, a lot of influencers, or like they call them KOLs today, who like they have a big following and people think they understand what they're talking about when it comes to crypto, but a lot of them are just like scammers and grifters. They have no idea what they're talking about, and they're just like paid to like shill projects over and over again. It's really similar to that when it comes to scientific research, and that like there's just a lot of people that they aren't at the pedigree that you think they're at, because the system is gamed in a way that doesn't correctly highlight those who are really good at the science. It correctly highlights those who are really good at publishing research papers. And so Research Hub thinks they can do this better, build a better reputation system. And obviously those are going to be the people you want to fund better. And so it's this really good synergy between funding and reputation. And so, imagine again, their goal is to take a percentage fee on every transaction. It's a $1.2 trillion sector. So there's actually a lot more potential here than I think most people realize when it comes to what Research Hub is trying to build. And that's what primarily has me so bullish on it. Now, how might this project fail? There are limitless ways. Okay, so open science and this whole movement is like it's not a newer movement. Open science has kind of been around for a while, but like using crypto and the infrastructure of crypto is newer. There's a lot of building that has to get done. There's a lot of inherent risk with any startup, especially something like this. And you got to see real adoption. They are seeing that. They are seeing growing metrics. They're seeing growing adoption, growing use already, and the scientific community already is starting to use these tools and loving it. But you got to continue to see that, and that could stop. There's all sorts of things that could go wrong with something like this. Okay, so I can't name exactly like how could this project fail, because there's almost too many ways on how this project could fail. And that is the risk that you're inherently taking when you jump into a project is, hey, there's a lot of ways it could fail. There are some ways it can succeed. And, are you willing to take that risk? And for me, the answer is yes. Like I am willing to take that risk. But for other people, you're going to want to do your own research and decide if that risk reward ratio is interesting to you. As far as biggest competitors, there isn't really a ton. The DeFi space is kind of flown under the radar. So you have these traditional institutions that would be like the competitors, but they're like so outdated, so bureaucratic that it's not really hard to innovate beyond them. And so I'm not super concerned about them. Would be more concerned about like maybe other crypto projects springing up, but it's going to be hard also to beat the reputation and resources that come along Brian Armstrong co-founding it, in my opinion. So yes, there are competitors. Typically right now though, the DeFi space really is arm in arm. They work together and they do a pretty good job of working together and really striving to push it forward because it's so small. It's like the early crypto space was similar to this where everyone was very collaborative. It's become more PvP today, where people are a lot more competitive within the crypto space. But in the early days, it wasn't because it was like a survival thing, and DeFi kind of feels a little bit more like that right now. So yeah, those are the three projects that would be winner, that would be index, and that would be research a coin. Obviously, you want to do your own research on all these different things. Obviously, none of what I said is investment advice. Obviously, I hold and own all three of these things. I've not been paid by any of these companies. I have no affiliation with any of these companies. I've done podcasts, though, with every single one of them. But I have no like extra perks. There's no reason for me to say these things outside of just my own thoughts. I believe these things, and I'm personally bullish. So that's it. I hope you guys have enjoyed this new format. If you have, please let me know in like the comment section on YouTube or shoot me a message or something. It's a new thing I'm kind of experimenting with. If you find it useful, please let me know. That's like valuable feedback for me to continue doing episodes like this in the future. Remember, the number one rule in crypto is never die. You've got to keep yourself in the game, have a strategy, be patient, and let the market come to you.